goals, as well as what the evaluation process looks like.
All right, please proceed, Madam Vice President. Thank you.
Thank you. Admir, can I get access to share my presentation? Is that possible? I think it's switched. Okay. Can everybody see the presentation just to make sure it is working? Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So this evening, we're going to talk about the superintendent evaluation process as well as the proposed goals. Why are we not switching here? So the goal is to establish a formal process for the annual evaluation of the superintendent, ensuring it accounts for executive officer transitions and enables a more streamlined and efficient approach. I've been on the board for 3 years. We have done, or I have participated in 2 superintendent evaluations. During my first tenure as a board, we agreed to use the Super Eval tool and went ahead and used that for 2 years. Because of the transition, we did not complete a superintendent evaluation at the end of last year, the close of that last year. And the goal is to get us back into the swing of it and lock in a process for moving this forward. So our proposed timeline are thus far. I did do a meeting with Super Eval. I have to admit, it's been a long time. So I needed a refresher on what that looked like and what the tool gives us access to, what's required of us. It was also my first time meeting with them in capacity as EVP. So I did do a meeting with Super Eval. They walked me through everything. I was able to log back in and get an idea of what we're working with. And then Dr. Mubanga and I had a meeting to discuss kind of expectations, realities of this year, where we're at, and start thinking through what these goals could look like, recognizing that it's a little bit of a different year. And that we obviously are taking into account the late start that we had. I did run the proposed goals and the rationale behind them with the Council of Great City Schools because they're deviating slightly off of our initial intent of jumping right into our adopted 5-year plan. But we recognize there's things we need to take into account. From there, and once Dr. Mubanga and I felt like we fleshed out enough of the goals and we were comfortable with them, they were presented to the executive team the week of our last board meeting, so the week of 11/24. So that team met, reviewed the goals, we talked through it, kind of the rationale, similar to a more condensed version of the process or the presentation I'm sharing with you today, and agreed that we were comfortable with them as written and ready to present them out. And obviously we were able to answer any questions. So next on that timeline is what's happening this week. It is the presentation to the full board, just sharing what that proposed goal plan is, as well as talking through what this looks like moving forward with the hope that we continue to have a pretty clear timeline set up for how we go about this process. If it's decided that this evening amendments are necessary to any of the goals, we do have a week in between the next board meeting. So the idea behind that is that we can make any shifts. I can send them out via email as we agree upon this evening or over the course of the next week, but we can get them as fleshed out as possible in advance of the board meeting. And then ideally, in a perfect world, we would be able to vote on the goals and close out this year with a clear guide of how we're stepping into 2026 with what those goals are and marching orders for Dr. Mubanga. It's helpful to have that as well and what that looks like. He will be the one that will add that on the back end, the goals that we agree upon, into the Super Eval system. Then we move into 2026. We know that there's a lot of transition that is occurring at the beginning of 2026. And so taking that into account, not just the onboarding of several new board members, but the reality that we shift officers, or there's potential for shift of officers. So knowing that, the first week of the month, I have it earmarked in my calendar to connect whomever assumes the EVP role to the folks over at Super Eval, because they are in fact the person who will see this second half of this process through as we complete the evaluation. So that handoff will happen, which I think will be very helpful and will be something moving forward that we need to be diligent about in terms of succession. From there, the new EVP, it's my recommendation that they work with Super Eval to assume a board training, ideally in the month of June, sometime close to when we will complete or use the tool. We have a lot of folks who haven't either A, used it in a while or have never used it. So having a training for us again, like we had, and some of you might remember several years ago, they did a virtual training and walked us through it. It's very helpful, and it's helpful when it's done close to the time frame that we will be using the tool. And Super Eval is very, very helpful with that. In July, Dr. Mubenga, he will complete his evaluation. So when we go to kick off the Super Eval, it starts with the self-evaluation the superintendent completes. So he'll complete his self-evaluation. We will determine an appropriate start time. And once that's done, the EVP will be responsible for alerting the board members. It will kick something out to us, and we then do our part. There's two parts to the Super Eval system. There are the goals that get entered every year and alter every year. And then there is the assessment piece. That is a set tool, and those questions remain the same year over year. The board members will have an allotted amount of time determined by the EVP to complete the Super Eval tool, and it will then give us a condensed version of the findings. So I would suggest that by August, we are able to have that conversation with Dr. Mubenga, discussing the results and anything else that comes with that in terms of the evaluation. And twofold, the EVP then has to start the process over. So EVP and Dr. Mubenga have to meet and flesh out the goals for the next year. In a perfect world, and I suggest that we're able to go through that process and present at the first work session in September for executive affairs. So it would be the EVP presenting that, and they would be adopted at the September meeting. This way, we have an entire school year that we are using these goals, and we aren't having kind of that delayed start that we have this year with all of the transition we've experienced. Ongoing after that, this is what the timeline would look like. So essentially August through July, and then we repeat the process again. And you almost always have two EVPs at play if there's transition year over year, unless somebody continues, but it allows for some succession, it allows for understanding, and folks to maneuver. And then obviously we need to take into account that at times we have significant transition when it's an election year, and the time frame in which we do our elections plays a role as well. So the goals. These are the goals that you all received via email for board members. You guys did get an email from me on, I think it was Friday or Saturday, and then a follow-up one came today. And these are the goals that Dr. Mubenga and I discussed. You will note that they are not specifically related to SOFG or related to the goals that we set forth, but that's because he does have the option as he's coming in to look at the interims and have some discussion, and I know he's going through that process. So we may see a little bit of a shift in the interims being proposed to us, but that's very difficult to surmise immediately. So goal one is the completion and public board presentation of the 100-day report outlining observations, themes, and early action steps on or before February 2026. So we discussed this. This is something that as a board we had already agreed upon or tasked him to. So we want to see that through, and we want to see that final report come to us and be made public as he's going through this process of getting comfortable with the district and everything that we're doing. Goal 2, completion and public board presentation of the strategic planning report outlining goals, objectives, and strategic direction on or before May 2026. So in conjunction to what we've done with SOFG, he is also launching into his strategic planning phase, which are some of the other items that would fall either parallel with what we're doing with SOFG or are complementary to. And we know that that process is just now softly starting. But again, it's something that we can make sure happens and we see through before the close of the school year. Goal 3 is completion and public board presentation of interim goals for 26-27 school year on or before March 2026. So those are those SOFG goals that I talked about. That is giving Dr. Mubanga the time to go through and have his 100-day report, go through and look at the strategic planning and how it complements or aligns with SOFG and some of the things that we have in place, and realistically look at the interims and propose to us some modifications to some of those goals. And goal 4, completion and public board presentation of the 26-27 monitoring calendar. This is related to SOFG to include updated monitoring report format, adhering to SOFG guidelines on or before April 2026. So that's us and Dr. Mubanga really making that commitment to this shift to our SOFG goals, to our monitoring calendar, to modifying the report to fit the format, and giving that space to do that and develop it as everybody's growing and learning through this initial phase. We know we have some onboarding happening with the folks at the council that'll be happening into the new year. So I think all of it complements realistically. The other thing that we discussed when we had our meeting that is really vital is that we are approving goals and we've got several new board members coming in January. So these are tangible goals that they will experience also in the second half of the year, that they can measure whether they were done, that they can also have the experience of going through the super eval system and utilizing it in answering these questions. They're all happening in the second half of the year. So it's something that they can participate in. So we're taking into account the new board members coming in as well and giving them that opportunity. Future goals as we continue on. So outside of this year and these proposed goals, we will include SOFG goals and interim metrics. So our goals will be tied very closely to that plan as we are putting them in there on an annual basis, and they will be easily measurable through the goal monitoring. So this is a little bit of a one-off year as we're getting back into it and we're recognizing transition, we're being realistic in what that means. And we are, understanding that while Dr. Mubanga might be getting his feet wet, we as a board are now going to undergo some pretty significant transition through the remainder of the year. So we want to set everybody up for success and make sure that we have that opportunity to build something that we can do successfully year over year. That is all I have for you. Are there questions? I will stop sharing only because I can't see if there's questions otherwise, because I can't see everybody.
Vice President, I have I don't know if it's a question, but just a friendly amendments that I would like to propose.
Sure.
If we can go to the proposed timeline 2026,
Yep.
that page.
Second. Proposed timeline 2026. Okay.
Yeah. If you look at August 2026, I see EVP will facilitate our result or discussion with our superintendent.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to propose probably to have our executive team to have that conversation with superintendent because evaluation is not something that's a one-on-one conversation because once they both fill up the parts and then the conversation, it needs to be with a dialogue. I agree with
Yes.
his statements and not a rebuttal, but it can be really good conversation. But that conversation, just living it with one person, is not going to provide the rest of the body feedback or reaction from the superintendent regarding the evaluation. That's what I will propose. And not just one person, maybe having the board leadership team to have that conversation.
It traditionally happened, and I appreciate that. I tried to use as little words as possible to fit in the slide when I was putting them in there, but traditionally, it's not one human that does it. The EVP is responsible for making sure that this gets set up and that the conversation opens. This has been, in my experience, and I've only had two of them, so other board members, please speak up. But my experience had been that it was actually the full board that had conversation and it happened in executive session. I'm designating the EVP solely as the person who's making sure that this is going to happen.
That's my recollection as well.
Thank you. Appreciate it for that clarification.
Yes. Yes, but I agree, and it shouldn't be a sole person that's doing that. It's different when you're planning the goals for the new year and you're going through that planning process. So that's a little bit different, but this is just the EVP is the responsible party for ensuring that this continues, right? Like the conversation happens, that it gets scheduled, that it gets set for whatever that appropriate time is. But in years past, in my experience, it had been executive session.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mhm.
Now, will that be added to that sentence there that the EVC, the Executive Vice President facilitates communication with the entire board in executive session?
I can shift it to say executive session. I just want to make sure they do it. That's all.
With the
Yeah.
entire board also?
No, that's what I said, Paulette.
Oh,
Right.
okay, so you can add that to the presentation.
Yes, hold on. I know you need to see the words. Give me 1 second while I open it back up and I will physically let you watch me type it if that makes you. Although this is just my PowerPoint. This isn't the there's no formal written policy. There's no anything like that. We have to vote on that later, but this is just my PowerPoint presentation. I want to clarify that too.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
Cindy?
Hold on 1 second. I closed the PowerPoint by mistake when I meant to. Okay. Terry, I think that was you. I
Yes,
didn't see your face,
I
so
just wanted to tell you I appreciate your dedication and for seeing the transition and making sure that it's well thought out and that you really gave us a good presentation on how to complete that. So thank you.
I appreciate that, Terry. I would say I learned that you don't always have information given to you. I know other board members have expressed that experience. Mine too. It's not an isolated experience for any particular board member. I think we just universally aren't the greatest at succession planning when that comes and handing off information. So I'm hoping we can get something a little more fluid because in my experience, the first two rounds of this super eval, the system is it's a very cool tool to use. It's user friendly, it's helpful. The people that work there are great at giving us the information, but it has, as a board, our lack of very clear procedure or process has made the actual evaluation process a bit rocky. And so it would be great if that wasn't, and we could take into account the realities of our transition. And I think that's a big piece of it. We did not take those things into account. And we weren't always transitioning in January, board members and leadership. And so, I mean, that's even new. Terry, I think it was our year that was the first year that did that. So, I mean, we're kind of learning as we go in terms of that transition. I don't know, I can't see everybody.
Thank you, Board Member McEachran. You said this will be presented at the reorg meeting?
No, it will be presented at the board meeting, so it will just be listed out his goals, not this presentation. This presentation I can offer to whoever is EVP at that time. So if you transition into that role, for example, then what I would do is connect you with the folks at Super Eval. That as soon as the day after the reorg meeting, and then you set up that meeting with them. You have access to the PowerPoint that has the breakdown of succession, and then it's on whomever's in that role to carry it through.
And
So
then the
it's similar.
entire training will happen in June for the entire board, right?
Correct, yes, because we won't actually other than Dr. Mubanga putting the goals in the back end so that they're
Mhm.
sitting there, nothing gets done. The tool doesn't get used until
June.
July, yeah, June, July. And so if we train now and then don't have to touch it because there's no use of it until then people forget. So
Yeah,
my
and we'll have a new
suggestion,
board.
yeah, that was my
Okay, and
suggestion.
so how did you come up with the goals with Dr. Mubanga?
We had multiple meetings where we sat and talked about them. What's going on? What's realistic for this year? What are we working on? And that's kind of we backed into, I guess, the goals and the time frame, recognizing that we're doing this in December. And so it's a little bit late. So we had to take that into account. So what activities have we as a board already said, yes, we want you doing this? And we have two of them, the strategic plan and the 100-day plan. So those we put in there and then clicked on end dates of what that looks like. And then the other ones, we know that going forward, we are transitioning and those goals will be related to SOFG. So being able to put some things in there that keep that process moving forward.
Okay,
So that
so
we're
I
ready
guess my
for it.
question is, how come this wasn't done with the entire board? Or was
Because
it just the
not
executive
everything is
session?
done with the whole board. It's done this way. Like we go through, have conversations, and then I do a presentation, right? Like not in all cases, is it done that way? Like it falls under the auspices of the executive vice president to facilitate that. The goal was to get something in place. Typically, we would have goals set ahead of time. Obviously, transition, that didn't happen, so I could not have that conversation and put that out there. So that's the point of the work session, right? Is that work is done. I propose goals. You guys can say no. The reality of it is, if you do and you don't want to utilize these goals and we want to go back through, or you want to wait until January when transition happens and a new person is in the role, I won't argue
So
it.
I guess what I'm trying to understand is in that role, it's just the Vice President of Executive Affairs and the superintendent who come up with the goals, period. No
Well,
input
there's
to other
not been
board
any
members.
fluid method for it that I know of. I
Okay,
know I haven't necessarily been part of that. When we did the second evaluation with the superintendent with Dr. Williams, we had a pretty clear SOFG plan. So we knew that those goals were the goals that were going in. It was still a little bit choppy, but those were the goals that were going to show up in the evaluation in addition to the assessment. And so then we had a break because she left, right? So we didn't end her school year or her term with an evaluation because she was leaving, and we onboarded Dr. Mubanga.
okay. And so per Dr. Mubanga's request, next August, this will be a full discussion with the full board. It won't just be one person.
Per his request, is that when we talk about the results, right? So after everybody's taken the assessment, right? He's done it, we've done it. We come together as an executive board, or not an executive board, we come in together in executive session and we talk about the goals. Now, if
We
come,
talk about the goals for
or
2027.
no, we talk about the results of the evaluation.
Okay, but the goals for 2027 will still just be a one-on-one process.
Yes, ideally, what would happen, because not everything has to be a full board process. If that's something that you guys, you know, in 2026 or whoever is assuming the role, because I am going to make an assumption it's not me. So knowing that, right, you can decide, I want this to be a full board conversation.
Yeah, I think the
And I'm choosing to
transparency
do
is
it that way.
nice. I think the
And
transparency is nice, and even with formulating the goals coming up for this June evaluation, I kind of think it would be nice for the new board members to have a say in that as well. But I kind of get where you're going as far as implementing the 100-day plan and the strategic plan into the evaluation for June, right? For July.
well, the interims are also something he would be sending to us no matter what. Like we're waiting on those to come. Like I said, I'm presenting this because I know I recognize, and I also heard feedback from, well, I heard some from you, right? As well as like the onboarding, the coming on is very overwhelming. And so my thought was we have 4 new board members coming in. That's a significant transition. If we can get goals in place, they can go through the process without having to try to make decisions about things that may not make entire sense at that time because we don't have a full understanding of what's happening. It's helpful because they're going through the process. We're also transitioning, right, our officers in January. So there could be shift and transition in that space. That being said, you guys could scrap it all. And come January, whomever is in that space, right, still has, like, we still have to do something. And I may
Thank
not,
you.
you know, like come January, it's a change. So like I can't argue one way or the other. This was a goal. I also recognize that, and I'm fully aware that if I wasn't the presenter, the experience would be different. And so I know that, and it's been my experience the entire year as the EVP. So I recognize that tradition goes out the door depending on the person.
Thank you, Board Member McEachern.
Sure. Sharon, I believe you have your hand up.
So I'm sorry, I was a few minutes late. This tool, at one point we had talked about not even using it anymore. I was just curious to know if Dr. Mubanga was familiar with this tool, or if he had used another tool in another life.
Thank you, board member. I was introduced to this tool. I think I had a conversation with my staff that's been able to use pretty much similar tools, and I felt really comfortable with this tool, the way that it's going to summarize their all reports and be able to accumulate all the artifacts and all that kind of stuff. So I was really comfortable with it. And
Okay,
also,
as,
yeah.
as long as you were comfortable with it, because one of the shortcomings that has been brought up about this tool, and I guess maybe it's based on this conversation, it can be adapted, is that it did not allow certain feedbacks in certain areas. And so I just wanted to make sure that, you know, with the new board starting, that there was any concerns that it would be, revisited. Thank you.
No problem. My additional comment is going to be any tool can be used, but I think the conversation after the evaluation, that's what is really important.
And Sharon, I did ask them because that was a question that had come out before, was the assessment. So what I got back from Lauren when I questioned the assessment is that those are fixed questions. And the assessment we use, that gives us like those series of questions and you rank them and they have all the different like subject or like areas. We chose a specific model. That's the assessment we're using, and it's the one that's utilized most frequent within New York State, is what was shared with me. There are other models of like the actual assessment questions separate from the goals, but those like questions that get fixed in there, we could choose different ones. There's models that are used in other parts of the US, but the model, and I wish I remembered, I don't remember the name of the particular model, but it was chosen because it's one that's typically utilized in New York State. that was what was shared with me.
Right. And what is
I
the
didn't
cost? Okay, thank you. What is the cost to use super eval?
I don't know what the cost is.
Okay.
I can get that for you, Madam Board Member, and I'll email it to the board.
Thank you. Thank you.
I can't see if there's any questions. Adriana, I think you might be the only one in there. You're the only person I can see so far, so.
Only board member. Yeah.
Okay,
I don't have any questions.
okay, thank you. I don't know if anybody else does. It doesn't
Cindy,
look,
I do.
thank you, Kathy, sorry.
And thank you for
course.
can you hear me?
Yes,
All right, thank you for the presentation. Before you were in that role, I was in that role twice, and we use Super Eval. And it's a tool that is used predominantly in New York State by a lot of superintendents. And you're absolutely right. It's the assessment is done and it can be changed. I kind of like where we are with Super Eval. And I think it's going to be prudent upon us to revisit it because you're absolutely right. We only use it once a year. And frankly, it takes time to go through the different um, goals and other prerequisites to get back familiar, with any tools, particularly Super Eval. So I think that for the goals that you and Dr. Mubenga set, because he is coming in December, are quite, I think they're okay. But what happens is with your timeline, if someone else besides you is in that role, they'll be able to follow it. So thank you for that.
thank you, President Evans
And
Brown.
can I just say one thing in moving forward? One of the things that good leaders do is follow. And anytime I have not been a president, I've been vice president 4 times, finance and ops 3, president 4 times. Anytime I have not been president of the board, I always let the president know what I'm doing. As a courtesy, as a respect to the office. And so I encourage the board moving forward that the president continues to be in the loop. It's just not fair to, and I don't know if this was the case or not here, but I'm just saying that in general, that the president be involved in the decisions. Everything should go back to the president, and he should be aware of what's going on. Without that, there's not good governance. So I just want to make sure that Adriana and Janita and people that are left, that you understand moving forward that the president should be involved in what the moves you're making and what you're doing. Okay. And ultimately, it is the president who signs off on the superintendent's evaluation. So that's the reason why you would want to make sure that throughout the process, and I'm not saying this was not the case here, but I just want to make sure that we've had some situations, some snafus this year where it did not flow like that. And the position is to be respected, whether you return people's phone calls when they reach out to you, or whether you understand that it is the position. It is the position that is to be respected, whether you like the person or not. Okay, so please remember that in going forward, because it moves things a lot smoother. Thank you.
As always, we appreciate it. Are there any other thoughts or questions, soliloquies, anything that anybody has?
Madam Vice President, it's Will. I have that price for the super eval system. It's $2,530 annually.
All right,
Thank you, Dr. K.
appreciate that.
Cindy, I want to say thank you for the addition, making sure that once the board members do their individual assessments, that the results are brought back and discussed in executive session with the superintendent, because there are so many things that we don't understand, we don't know, and sometimes we make our recommendations without the depth of knowledge if we don't go back and talk to the superintendent so he can enlighten us, because it's been a growing process over this 9 years. There have been people at the beginning who said, I don't even know what the staff does, or I can't even answer that question. So we've grown a lot, we've improved a lot, and thank you for continuing to help us to grow and improve by adding that executive session and feedback as mandatory, not an if and or maybe, but a definite. So
Yep,
thank you for
it
that.
is listed right there to discuss with the full board, that they're going to facilitate that discussion with the full board. Yeah. But also just going back to, that is purely a PowerPoint. So that's all that is. That was just a way for me to be able to for information so that it was visible, whether we were virtual or in person. That was the sole purpose of that. And once again, I recognize timing, it's late, all of the things. And all I can do is say January is almost here, and either way, somebody will have to facilitate an evaluation in 2026. So we need to get there at some point. So some way, somehow. Again, if we're okay, I would like to request that we are able to adopt goals in December. I do think that it's fair to Dr. Mubanga that it just gives us something that we can work towards, and that he's working towards, and it's pretty clear and concise, and allows us to honestly go through the transition that's going to occur and all the moving parts that are going to happen with it, and nothing gets lost. And unfortunately, sometimes when things get lost in that shuffle, it ends up having an adverse effect, because then we're rushing to try to get something done, and I don't want to see that happen either. So I was more or less trying to think about the future and transition and get us set. So but I will leave it to your direction. I will request that it be added to the board agenda. If it doesn't pass, then we know that it'll be worked on at some point in 2026. Yes.
So you're saying that you want this board this month to do this, knowing that you have 4 new board members coming on, or 3 new board members?
Just the
I'm
goals.
confused.
Just the goals. Yes, I would like us to adopt the goals in advance of the new board members coming on, because it's something we would have done in September, and that is going to be traditional, even though we're always going to have that January transition, right, on months or years where there's elections. You could have new board members cycling in. My request, because reality of it is we're coming to a close and we're bringing on 4 new board members, is if we agree to some goals, Dr. Mubanga is clear in, kind of the expectations for evaluation, and it allows the new board members to experience those items as well as we're going through it, because they'll happen during their tenure. So it's nothing that they weren't present for. It's all happening while they're there. And then they're getting the onboarding at the same time, like everybody else, to go through the system, use the system, and the EVP that takes office in January will have 6 months or 5 months or whatever the time frame is, and be prepared to go through the process of setting the goals for the 26-27. So you'll have board members a little bit more comfortable. We'll have gone through the space. We can handle the transition, and we're not asking brand new board members coming in to try to have thoughts or feedback when there's been a lot of stuff we've been happening in conversation that not everybody might be aware of. So that was my thought process. That was the goal in asking this board to approve the goals, and even to start the conversation and development was just so that we had something pretty fluid that we could lean on, and hopefully an easier process come June, July.
Okay. All right. So the reason I'm asking is this is December the 3rd.
Mhm.
A month from today, we'll be swearing in, yesterday, we'll be swearing in new board members. And I'm not comfortable at this point, this late in the game, voting for that. I think that it would be great to have them oriented. I'm not, are you the goals you're talking about right now are the things that you proposed earlier?
Those 4 goals. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, okay. You're
That's
not
all.
talking about the academic goals.
No. So he actually, one of the goals is Dr. Mubanga looking at the interims and determining what are appropriate, language changes or figure changes, all of that stuff, and presenting that. I think it was by April, maybe, to the new board, because we would be going into that for next year. And that would, be then moved. So everything kind of builds off of one another. But that's built in to one of the expectations that he has for this school year.
Okay, the only reason I said that is because my training tells me that goals are smart. And by this not be, and so by these not having specifics, that's the reason why I asked the question I asked.
Yep.
Because technically, it's more of a flow chart from what I'm seeing versus goals, more of a workflow. And maybe I'm confused with that, but
No, they should be, and they will be moving forward. That's why the last slide addressed, like, here on out, we're recognizing this year is a little bit wonky, if you will, right? Because it's just a series of transitions that are occurring, and that have occurred, and we have to recognize that and take that into account. That won't be the case moving forward. So we're kind of building those things, giving some achievable things that he can go to. You are correct. Outside of end dates, they are not saying we're starting here and ending here, and this is the amount of growth we're going to have. What we're doing is getting ourselves prepped so that come 26, 27, we're really clear in what those goals are. And we know our goals are written smart. So as they're kind of translating or transferring into that evaluation process, we're going to have pretty clear SMART goals and a refined monitoring calendar and way that information is being conveyed to us.
okay. So are we still using the term goal or are we using timeline?
I mean, I used the term that Super Eval used. That's the only reason I use that word, because that's what they, like, how they differentiate goal and assessment is how the 2 parts of the tool when I had my call. So I stuck with their verbiage.
Okay, because we need to be consistent. If goals are smart, they're smart. If a timeline is specific, it's specific. I just want to make sure.
I would love for us to be consistent. I think we're headed in that direction. And so again, all I can do is propose what I do think to be the best course of action. If it's not agreed upon,
I don't
can't
think it's
change
an
that.
issue of agreeing upon it. I just issue that we've all taken the training. I was the first one to take it, and we were clear that the goals are smart. Okay, and that's
Yes.
that's why I asked that question. And so
Yep.
if it's a timeline you're talking about, I don't, that's a timeline. If if you're talking goals, then goals should be specific. So it's a matter of term, I think what it is. And I just want to make sure moving forward, when we talk about goals, that we are talking smart goals. Okay, when we talk about timeline, we're talking dates and things. So just be aware of where I'm coming from with that. I'm not trying to
I hear
I'm
it.
just trying to make sure that we're consistent with what we're saying. That's all. A goal has a beginning and an end. It's measurable, blah 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 blah, blah
Yep.
etc.
Fully
And it's
aware.
normally identified up front, and you have a goal that you're targeting. So I
Yep.
don't have a problem with that. But the reason that I questioned it is because you used the term goal, And
I simply repeated the word.
no,
So
but I'm just saying, when you
suggest
said
you don't
goal,
look
I'm
deep
like,
into it.
we should be specific if we got a goal. I need to
Trust me,
know
if
what we're
I
working
had my
on.
way, so much would be different, but I'm all about consistency and kind of the way things operate, and that would be ideal. And I hope that we can kind of get there, right, to your point. And that's where I think I'm trying to get us in that space, and factoring in and thinking about the realities of our transition when that happens, not just this year, but anytime it's a year where we have elections, we're going to go through this same, transition, and it could be significant, right, on certain years. And we just want to make sure that we're kind of taking into account and flowing through process, right? And something that is then there's a clear succession, right? And we can continue using it, whether it is the Smart Eval tool or we adopt something else at some point as a board. My suggestion would be to stay with Smart Eval this year at the very least, because it's mid-year and it's just a little bit easier, but that's still just my recommendation. And, when people are more comfortable in spaces, start to look at what other processes could be, but at least we have a flow. So time frame of when things are going to happen, and to keep, right, that timeline in place across the board from July to August on a regular basis moving forward, recognizing this year is a little bit of a different year. And I think it would have been different too, Sharon, if we didn't have a superintendent shift. We would have very concretely moved, right, the interims and the goals that we created into that place. But when we shifted everything, and we transitioned a new superintendent in, and now we've got kind of that transition time of coming in and getting acclimated with the district, we have to recognize, and we're late to kind of getting to that space, right, of formulating what that is. And he's been given opportunity to not only get more comfortable with the SOFG concept, but also to look at the interims and come up with ones that he's comfortable with. I think this is just a good way to get through this year, that transition space, and then kind of flow in a different way. And it will absolutely be those SMART goals. And they're already written that way, which is even better. But those are the goals that we'll go off of. I am assuming we are okay at this point. Dr. Mubanga, I will hand it back to you if there's anything that you might have to close us out. If there is
Can you wait?
nothing.
I'm sorry. Can I ask you one more thing about board docs
Yes.
while we're here?
Yes.
So we were it was brought to our attention that there's a provision in board docs that when changes are made after the package has gone out to the board, that it notifies the board of the newly changed items, and that comes under your purview as EVP. And so I'm wondering, because I've mentioned it several times, if anything has been done to correct that, meaning that, or to
No, I did not know that was under my purview.
Yeah,
These are the
Madam,
things I'm
no,
learning.
no, executive VP, right?
I did not know that.
No, but it's
Madam-
okay. Anything that deals with certain things. But anyway, what do you have to say on that? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Madam Board Member, I'm sorry for the interruption. Yeah, when there's an item that the superintendent would like included on the agenda, and it's after that Wednesday before where we've posted the packet, that's when you get a text from me and an email that alerts you to it.
I understand that, but the board docs is set up to do that automatically. If the switch is turned on, it's what we were told at New York State School Board Association. So there is a switch that is turned on that would notify the board automatically. It would take the board, it would take the board right to the item if they opened up the email. And it's just an easy fix. The board members are not trying to figure out what happened when the system automatically can tell you that. And so that is a feature of board docs, and we have not been using it as a district.
I will definitely look into that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thanks.
Thank you. If there is nothing else, Dr. Mavanga, once again, if you have anything, I'm going to open the floor for you to close us out.
All right, thank you, EVP. This has been really outstanding work that's given us, particularly me, clear direction how we're going to move forward when it comes to my evaluation. I'm going to plead with the board to please take this for the next board meeting. It's going to be a little bit odd to wait for the new board members coming in that have to go to orientation and they don't really understand the work yet for them to be able to delay the process. So if this current board will be able to take that on and be able to vote on it, that will be helpful. So thank you to both. If you're going to move on with these 4 goals, and even moving forward in the future, it makes really sense. 4 to 5 goals is what really makes sense to be able to work on one particular year. Anything beyond 5 is a little bit too much for superintendent really to focus on. That's the same best practice that I use evaluating my cabinets. So I'm really pleased with the 4 that we have. If we really want this to be written as a SMART goals with the specific timeline, I think the language is really clear that we can convert it quickly to SMART goals. So I'm looking really good when it comes to these goals, and I'll be able to produce to you my reports to the community as well sometime around February about my 100 days reports. And at the same time, we're going to kick off with our strategic plan, which we have about 56 or 58 persons that will be a part of that. I'm really excited. That is a broad group of people, business communities, and our elected official. Everybody's going to be around the table for us to be able to produce these documents that we're going to be able to align with the timeline that is written on this eval. So I'm really excited for this opportunity, and I look forward to going through this process and be able to have a really meaningful conversations as we're doing this work together. So that's pretty much my final comments. Then I'm going to ask the EVP if we can transition to the next person here, which is going to be um, Honorable Paulette Woods, unless EVP has final other comments.
Nope, I am good transferring the meeting over and transitioning over to Chairwoman Woods. Congratulations on chairing or about to chair your last Finance and Ops.
Well, good evening and welcome to the Buffalo Board of Education Finance and Operations meeting. It's budget time, everybody. Passing a budget is one of the major responsibilities of the Board of Education, other than hiring a superintendent. So today we will have a presentation from our CFO on the results of our first quarter 2026 finances. And then we will have projections for the 25-26 school year. And that is the basis. Your actual expenses are the basis for starting your 26-27 budget process. I also want to say that this is my last work session as Finance and Ops Chair, and that it has been a pleasure serving in this responsibility for the last 9 years. It's been a pleasure working with our finance staff, Chief Barnes, and working with the new superintendent, and working with you board members. You will have, as we said, 4 new board members coming on. And again, I will turn this over to the superintendent for his remarks, and he can bring on the CFO.
Thank you, Honorable Woods. I don't have further comments. At this point, I'm going to pass it on to CFO Barnes.
Thank you, Superintendent and Ms. Woods. And Ms. Woods, we've been through a lot of things together over the years. And one, I want to congratulate you on your well-earned retirement and whatever's next for you. And I'll always remember you with a great deal of respect and fondness. Admir, next slide, please. So quick review of the agenda for tonight. I'm going to review the Q1 '26 report, just the major points. The full report was previously distributed on November 15th. Included in a quarterly report is the projection for the remainder of the year. That, again, was included in that report distributed November 15th. Then I'm going to end tonight with the discussions on the upcoming 26-27 budget process from a couple of perspectives. I'm going to go through some numbers showing the financial necessity of right sizing and deficit reduction next year. Our initial objective is the deficit contained in the board-approved 4-year plan. $31.8 million deficit. That's a reduction of $47 million from the current year's deficit. So there's a lot of work to do. Deficit reduction includes right sizing plans, expenditure and FTE reductions, but that doesn't make up the whole plan. I'll also discuss revenues. It's going to take cost cuts and revenue increases to hit that $47 million reduction goal. Just an FYI, the 26-27 budget process began this week within the budget department. We're assembling all the historical trend data. We're starting to put together salary projections, incorporating next year's proposed contract step and longevity increases, and a whole host of data. So we're getting ready. Admir, next slide. A quick look at the Q1 '26 financial report and projection. This data was largely pulled from the executive summary page of that report and just updated for a few things. So as of the first quarter, the district is projecting a $78.8 million deficit for the full year, the same as the original and the approved budget. On the revenue side, we have received the initial state database runs for both 25-26 and for next year, 26-27. The 25-26 revenue numbers, they'll be confirmed with the upcoming release of what's called the SAMS output reports. So it's still a little too early to produce for you a report on the current year state aid revenues. But the initial numbers show that we will hit our budgeted revenue targets for 25-26. The initial 26-27 numbers, they're also looking positive. These are very preliminary, and 26-27 revenues will not be known until the state budget is passed in April of next year. The FTE charts that are included in the report, and they're always a big part of that report. They're based upon data available as of September 30th. The reports indicate the potential for vacancy savings. However, it's not possible to get an accurate projection until the payrolls have been processed through December 31st. The reason for that is the BTF is largely not paid in July and August, and additional hirings occur in September and October. So we sort of wait to December, and then we can give you a good, solid salary projection. Enrollment trends. The initial 25-26 beds count for pre-K through 12 are up 326, or about 1% from the prior year. Again, to be cautious, these initial counts typically decrease as further scrubbing of the data occurs through December. A quick point. You might say those first 3 bullet points, wow, you're showing some good news. Yes, cautiously good news, but that does not negate in any way the need for our cost-cutting right-sizing programs, and I'll show you that later. We can have 2 things, some positive indicators early in the year, but we still need to pursue our plan. Enrollment, I went through enrollment. A quick note from the executive summary on the H Fund capital projects and V Fund. We put a lot of work into this over the last 18 to 20 months, and it's starting to bear some fruits. While not a part of the quarterly report, which focuses on the general fund, there was significant activity just recently and these successes should be noted. We received the proceeds of 21.95 million of a bond sale in September of 2025. $74 million in a refinancing refunding bond was actually sold this afternoon at 2:30. The district will receive about 2.7 million in cash for future capital projects. And then last week, 55.6 million of our 2026 capital projects were included in the final City of Buffalo capital budget. So that's all good news. I put that last sentence in here, though. There is significant risk associated with any mismanagement of a capital budget this size. Let me tell you what mismanagement, probably the wrong word. But these numbers I gave you, 21 million for last year to 55 million this year, the 2.7 in refunding proceeds, the plans for the use of those funds were carefully put together and each project was properly funded. What we have to guard against is overexuberance, requests for unfunded projects. We also have to hold our vendors accountable. The last year's have all been bid out, contracts awarded, work has begun. Now we need to hold these vendors accountable because you don't receive the building aid, the 97% that everybody talks about, until the projects are finished. So we don't want projects that linger for 2, 3, 4 years. In the interim, you're paying for your debt service. You need these projects completed so we can collect aid on it to offset the debt. So not to dampen the good news, I just, as a conservative financial planner, I gotta put that out there. Just like my last one, C-Fund Food Service. There was $37.7 million in the food service fund as of June 30th, 2025 per our audit. The 25-26 budget calls for a $6.1 million deficit. This deficit has to be watched closely to ensure that this fund balance remains adequate to cover the lease payments on the new commissary in years 1 through 9. Again, just being forward-looking and a very conservative financial planning, I'm identifying a risk, but we're watching that closely. Next slide, Admir. The last part of the first quarter report I want to bring your attention to is our cash flow. That's on page 223 of the report. The impact of incurring a $78.8 million deficit is most clearly shown in the projected reduction in our cash balances from the beginning balance of $402 million to a projected $315 million as of June 30th, 2026. I just want to be clear as we enter in next year's budget process. Deficits are a dollar for dollar reduction in our cash resources. Admir, next slide. So tonight I'm going to communicate again and show the impact of continued deficits on the assignments within our fund balance. Page is titled The Financial Necessity for Right Sizing. Our fund balance, the audited fund balance at the end of last year was $387.2 million. As previously stated, we don't see any deviation from the approved budget deficit of $78.8 million. That will reduce our fund balance down to $308.4 million at the end of this fiscal year. If we don't do any right sizing, the 26-27 projected deficit will increase to $98.8 million. That would bring our fund balance down to $209 million. Now here is where I get to talk a little bit about the importance of assignments within the fund balance as a critical part of conservative, prudent financial management. So with no right sizing, our fund balance, total fund balance goes down to $209 million. Right now, our assignments include non-spendable funds, that's inventory, restricted funds of about $30 million. That's unemployment claims, potential judgments that we'd have to pay out. The OPEB liability, that's for post-employment benefits, a portion of those, that's 72 million. Prior year claims, at the end of every year, not every purchase order is fully paid out. You have to set aside money to pay the balance. That's 9 million. 50 million in board approved assignments for the Da Vinci and the commissary to pay the lease on the commissary in years 10 through 15. Health insurance premiums, we put aside 15 million. Then you have to put aside the money for next year's deficit. If we don't do right sizing, that deficit's going to balloon to $108 million in 2 years. So total assignments are 294 million. But your fund balance is only 209. You would have a negative unassigned fund balance of 84.5 million. Here's the important thing to know about assignments. You can't have a negative unassigned fund balance. You will have to take money that's currently set aside for those potential liabilities above, take that money out of those bank accounts to cover this negative balance. So what could that mean? You take all your money and you don't have any money to pay claims, potential legal claims. You just give up on Da Vinci and the commissary and risk all of that investment. So I hope this shows and explains in maybe a slightly different way the need to right size. Now, next slide, Admir. So our 4-year plan. That was largely a deficit reduction strategy, that document. And before I start, I want to mention, I've heard a lot at different meetings, oh, we should have done this, we should have done that. Well, we really need to focus on and look forward, but also be mindful that the prior superintendent did cut 250 vacancies. He cut virtual pathways in half and left a sizable fund balance. So the school closing committee and the board, we need to focus on what we need to do going forward. And the 4-year plan incorporates the impact of a significant deficit reduction strategy. The right sizing plan, it's only one component of a plan that includes FTE and expenditure reductions plus revenue increases. The objective outlined in the 4-year plan is to reduce this year's deficit by $47 million from 78.8 to 31.8 next year. Again, through a combination of expenditure cuts and revenue increases. Also, tonight I'm sort of giving you a clear, concise picture of how the numbers work, but the 4-year plan goals also include, while we're doing all this, settling unity contracts and dealing with employee benefit and charter school increases. All of that's wrapped into the 4-year plan. So if you're curious about what the assumptions are on those, take a look at the 4-year plan. There's details assumptions for every revenue and expenditure line. Admir, next slide. So if we all set out and agree that the 4-year plan deficit reduction and fund balance, the reduction of $47 million in the deficit, here's what happens. The fund balance at 6/30/25, 387. We're going to lose 78.8 this year and bring the fund balance down to 308 million. However, the projected deficit next year is only 31.8 million. Thus, we have a fund balance at the end of next year of 276 million. I kept the assignments the same. But the big change is the second year of the 4-year plan only calls for a $23.3 million deficit. So at the end of all that, the unassigned fund balance at the end of next year will be $68 million. It's a lot of money. It's above any state regulation, and we're in fairly good financial position. Admir, next slide. So, just wanted to give an easy to follow scorecard and path forward of everything we've talked about. None of this stuff is new. On the expenditure side, cut virtual pathways, close 2 schools. This third one, I want to make a note of. The superintendent is so focused on ensuring we hit our 4-year plan goals and so committed to deficit reduction, he's pushing me. He's already cut 8 central office FTEs out of the current year. He's already got a board resolution for the virtual pathways program cut. And the school closing committee, they're zeroing in on the identification of the 2 schools. He's asked for an update Monday on how we're going to cut the other 64 FTEs to get to the goal of 100. He has a list of potential other cuts that are being considered, not necessarily FTE related, but that will total about $15 million. So that's $29.4 million and 100 FTEs that are being zeroed in on, but more than that, planned out with discussions with his cabinet and the various programs noted here. So for this point in the year, we're, I think, doing tremendously. Admir, next slide. Oh, Admir, next slide. All right, so again, sort of easy to follow chart of a deficit reduction. Let's look at the summary potential impact on next year's deficit. We start out the current year, the deficit is 78.8 million. The prior slide showed you that net expenditure and FTE cuts, 29.4. I intimated at the beginning that our revenues, we're going to hit our goals. So they'll increase 20 million. 78.8. We cut 29 in expenses. We had 20 in revenues. Our projected potential 26-27 budget is 29.4 million. So again, very concise, hopefully easy to follow, but proof that this can be done. The superintendent has also requested from the state new and additional revenue sources to even close that 29.4 million gap. So Admir, last slide. So if I could just give some summary remarks. The revenues, expenditures, and cash flows are tracking according to plan through September 30th. We're projecting a $78.8 million deficit. We have to significantly reduce our structural deficits beginning next year to maintain sustainable cash balances and fund balances. The superintendent has been proactively addressing all of the items contained in the 26-27 right-sizing budget. I laugh because I'm in there twice a week and he's pushing hard. But not without getting input and making sure that whatever cuts are made do not impact the services we provide to the children. I want to assure you of that. So it's really important that all constituencies, unions, the cabinet, the board, myself, that we understand the situation, understand the plan that's in place, and support the superintendent in these efforts. Thank you. That concludes my remarks. Any questions?
Okay, board members, you see the overall plan of revenues increasing by $20 million. Jim, can you give a little bit more specifics on $20 million revenue increases? Is that things like, you're expecting to do additional Medicaid billing?
Yeah, yeah. Uh, number one, it's those, mentioned in one of the first slides, our first glance at the state aid numbers. It looks like we will get increases in foundation aid, and in transportation aid. Lastly, per the last audit, our sales tax revenues are up a couple $1 million a year. Our Medicaid revenues are up about $1 million. And the revenue team has a solid plan of about 3 areas that they're working on that we think we can bring in an additional $3 million. So state aid so far, the biggest part looks positive.
Okay, so you've had conservative estimates on the revenue increases in state aid.
I would
That's a-
say accurate. I would say accurate projections.
Okay, the reason I'm asking about saying conservative is we have a federal government that is getting ready to dissolve the state education department, throw it back to the states.
Yep.
And we just came from the Big Five convention, so there's a few things in flux. So
We've identified the potential for the redirection of $13 million in federal grants, largely in the the Title II and III grants and some adult ed programs. We're planning for that already, but we're hoping for a redirection and not an elimination.
okay, and you've already identified 2 million. I think it was 2.7 million because of the refinancing and the capital bonds.
Right, but that money has to be used for capital projects in the H fund only.
Okay, all right.
So board
Board
member
member-
Woods, I
Per-
think for this
go ahead.
foundation aids, we're getting some preliminary numbers that are not official yet. That's why the CFO is feeling really comfortable, but we're not comfortable yet to share those numbers.
Thank you, Super.
Yeah, I appreciate I appreciate that. If you don't have a budget passed yet, you can't give us definite numbers. You also went over the several items that are reductions, including 100 targeted overall 100 positions. How
Correct.
many of those are retirements?
Oh, great question. I cannot give you an exact answer on that, but let me try to answer it this way. We currently have about 230 vacancies at the end of the first quarter, but those are all split up amongst the 11 unions. So the positions that are cut here, and if they're cut and vacant, they just go away. If they're cut and filled, it generally follows this path. They can fill a vacancy in another area. They could fill a retirement, or they bump down. They start a bumping process. Very complicated, very complex. HR is exceptional at handling those transactions. And there's going to be a few of them with 100 people. We're confident minimal loss of jobs, but there probably will be some layoffs when the bumping process ends.
Okay, once again, normally we had projected 200 retirements. So
Yes.
when you're saying we need to cut 100 positions, if there are 200 retirements and other vacant positions, then basically there's very little pain to our workforce.
Right.
So that's why I'm asking that question, because it would appear that if there are 200 retirements and even half of that materializes, we would be able to meet our goal without actually affecting anyone, any of our staff that actually wanted to stay.
I hear you, but there's no way we can guarantee that or set that expectation. It depends upon what positions are cut and who retires.
Okay, but I would say that's highly probable. We never guarantee anything, but given the number of vacancies and the number of retirements that normally occur, wouldn't you say it's highly probable that we will have
I
minimal impact?
I would like for you to be able to put words in my mouth because this is your last meeting, but I can't give that guarantee. It's complicated.
Okay, I didn't say guarantee, but I made my point and you've given your response. So, board members, let me see, do I see any hands up? Participants' hands up. Sharon Belton Cotman. You have the floor.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say that I've been on the board almost 15 years. And even prior to that, no one has commanded the finance and operations chairperson position as well as you have, Paulette Woods, and that's a fact, okay? And I want to thank you for the work you've done. Your expertise, I can remember right out the back, you found $5 million the first year out. It was like, oh, y'all got $5 million you didn't tell anybody about. And so I'll never forget that. And it's been a pleasure working with you. I have a couple of questions. And the reason being is that we are aware that our superintendent inherited a lot. Okay. And my concern for him as I depart is that he understands the true picture of everything because, and yeah, I'm a snitch and I'm proud of it. Okay. Because the last thing I want to do is know something and not share it with the superintendent. And so I just have a couple of questions and then I'll lead into that. Is there a definite plan for, at this point in this game, for deficit reduction? Meaning, has it been written out? Has it been put in formal procedures, etc., in regards to that? I'm talking about deficit reduction, plan to recapture our students and retain our students. And those are two major things that I'm concerned about. I saw what you presented, but I'm saying the behind the work, the ands is what I'm asking.
I'll let you answer that. Again, my weekly work with the superintendent, it's been phenomenally focused and detailed. We have a list on ledger-sized paper of various items for deficit reduction. And this is on the expenditure side, FTE and non-FTE cuts. He painstakingly goes through, there's probably about 50 items on the list. He's already approved and implemented in the current year, maybe 10 or 11 items. There's another 20 he's considering. But he doesn't make, and super, I don't mean to speak for you, but he's always, before he acts and says, cut it, he's checking the impact on our students regarding the level of service, and he checks with cabinet members. But it's very detailed, Ms. Scottman.
Okay, thank you. So in that report, it includes the overtime.
Yes.
Okay, reduction, and it also includes the process that's currently being used for purchasing items, such as we have 187 over there full of books and everything. Has a system been set up where before staff orders new product, that is checked to see if we have the product already in stock?
Right. Well,
has that been put in the plan? Because that's a reduction item.
Right. The first one, overtime, yes, it's on the list. We're working out the mechanics and which area. And then number two, No, that has not, I have not put it on the list, so I have not fleshed it out enough for him to consider. But as you know, Mark Belton and them already have a system that handles the textbooks, that we need to expand it per your comments. But that's on me. I have not.
Well,
put
the
it on
reason
the
that I
list.
brought that up is because more textbooks are coming in and there's textbooks already on the shelf.
Yep.
Okay, and so it seems like to me that it's not a difficult process to do. If someone's if the textbooks are being requested, that somebody verifies whether the textbooks already exist in the district before the request is asked. And
That
that's
is
the
true.
reason that's the reason why I'm bringing this up, because a lot of textbooks are sitting on the shelf and new book textbooks are coming in. And we've talked about this for 2 years now, and I appreciate your work that you've helped to get, I want to call it our Amazon, up and running, but it
Thank you.
certainly is not running if people are just continuing to order and not checking to see if books are already on the shelf or in the district. There's a lot of money to be saved, and you said in your initially when we started this, what, 9 years ago, to get this moving forward, that a lot of money had been saved by going through that process. That
Oh,
needs to
good.
be implemented immediately.
Yeah,
Okay,
we've
so
got $3.5 million. We just, I'll check with Mark and Mike Cambria and the team over there and see
they're
what this.
ready. They just need, we just need a procedure put in place that makes sure that people are not ordering books without
Sure.
having it signed off. There's, just like anything else, ordering books, there needs to be a check off to be signed off. And I'm not getting into the operation side, but I'm saying that there's a warehouse full of books, and we need to make sure that we're prudent and using what we have before we order some new stuff. That'll save some money in itself. The enrollment trends. I always hear you talk about the enrollment. Do we have a plan to recapture and retain our students at this point? No reflection on the superintendent, but the new superintendent, do we have a plan? Because we're always talking about we're losing students, but you started out with a 326 student increase. Is that by coincidence? Is that by osmosis? How did we get to that? And etc. One of the things that parents are telling me is that the late start has been a problem for them. They left Buffalo Public Schools because of that, because we did not accommodate them by opening up the doors of the school for the very late start, like late start schools, and providing a place for their children to go while they go to work. We and with that, I'm going to bring up the fact of transportation. Have we started looking into AI on transportation? I've talked to other districts; they're doing it. They're using it, and it seems to be saving some money across the country by implementing AI. This would reduce the overtime. That was one of the biggest savings that we talked about earlier if AI has been implemented. And I haven't seen anything to come before the board in regards to it. But to literally have 3 tiers, losing students because parents cannot get to work on time and get their children to school on time, and not be working for a permanent fix by using artificial intelligence to help us make sure that we're doing this right, to me doesn't seem like we're moving in the right direction. And I know Mr. Petrucci had said that he was looking into it. That was 3 months ago, so I want to know where we are with that. And I don't expect an answer, but I will be looking forward in the future. And this is something that when I turn over the baton to newly elected board member Stefan Wright, that I will be
Voting in
asking him to
progress.
follow up on it.
Chat and
Okay.
we can
I'm
start.
sorry.
Kamar.
Okay, so anyway, the concern I have, and it really goes back to slide 5, is that there was a conversation with the state that said that we had up until 2026 or 27, I can't remember it, to utilize the money in the fund food service program. Okay. And did anything change with that?
Yes.
Because if we're not, and at the time, the conversation was about updating our facilities,
Right.
making sure we had nice rooms. Has anything changed with that lump sum money from the state? Have they sent out something that says that they will allow us
Yes.
to continue to hold that balance indefinitely?
Yes, I worked with the Federal Food Service funds and got an approved excess fund usage plan approved by them and actually extended out 2 years. And prior to the expiration of that, if the commissary construction isn't done, I will negotiate another extension. But
Okay, so
Okay.
that's your commissary. It
Correct.
said originally that you could not do more than 2 years lease. Did that
No.
change?
Yeah,
Upfront lease.
yeah, yes, absolutely, it's changed. We have a
And
30
you,
we
and
have
you
a
have it
30
in
year.
writing.
Yes.
Okay,
And most importantly to understand, leases are approved food service operating expenses. They're always approved.
I understand that. What I'm saying is in that meeting, they said that at the time, I think we had somewhere between 28 to 28 million or whatever. They
Yeah.
said in that million at that meeting that they only allow a 2-year upfront lease payment to be paid. And so I'm verifying this.
Yeah, the prepayment of leases, no, that was abolished, so that was not approved, so we went to, I think it ended up being Plan C for the funding plan for the commissary. We cannot
Okay,
prepay.
so
Correct.
Plan C, did that include the profits from the food
Oh, yeah,
service? And so
Yeah.
last year we did not show a profit. How do we
Right.
plan to maintain that if you said we only had a $220 thousand profit last year?
right, and this year we're projecting a deficit, I'm working, and the reason for the deficit is at the same time, everything else is happening here. There needs to be a reinvestment in some of the cafeteria equipment, tables and chairs. So I'm working very closely with Ruth Connor on striking that balance between reserving the fund balance to pay the new commissary lease while reinvesting some money in the school-based facilities.
Right, but it said it wasn't just for the equipment. It also talked about making the environment better for the children in that conversation under that guideline. This is federal funding that is limited to certain things. And so what my concern is that we have gone for decades having a profit. And now we're showing a lower amount that cannot even cover the lease.
Right, right, and this was all clearly spelled out in the financing plan for the new commissary, and at that time, Ms. Scotland, I just respectfully disagree that the majority of that $37 million fund balance was all accrued during the COVID years, where we were getting double reimbursements for our meals served. That added like 28 million dollars to the fund balance. And then
Jim, we can disagree. Let me explain something. You
Yep.
can't even get Lou Petrucci to believe that one, okay? Because
Well, it's true,
that
though.
woman, maybe you got a lump sum during that period, but Bridget ran that department where every year she collected $1 million. And when we started talking about the commissary, we had upwards of $24 million somewhere in reserve. And the interesting thing about this is, because I'm in the process of trying to clean my office out here, I
Yeah.
keep notes on everything that we talk about. So I have a file on commissary. I have a file on food services and things like that. And to say that during COVID, the majority of that money was accumulated, I would like to see that in writing, because
Sure,
you may
I-
have received a lump sum, and that's because of the work that Bridget did. Do we not forget that Bridget literally went out on the street and opened up food places so that kids could come and eat? She went to the churches, made sure she provided food. She worked during that period to generate more money so that we would have commissary money. And I think
agree.
at the time she left, we were somewhere around 24,000 to 28,000, million, 24 to 28 million money in reserve when she left. And that's off the top of my head, but I sort of remember numbers. So I don't, it is what it is. All I want to make sure is that this board does not inherit a situation where the state comes back and say, we did not do that. We did not tell you that. Maybe by that time, you may be retired. I don't know. But at the end of the day, we're sitting up here saying we've got money. And if the state in the meeting that I was in, so I think there's a need, Dr. Mubenga, for you to have an additional meeting with the state to make sure all of this is correct, because this is a lot of money and this can sink a ship, because if we don't have the money that we think we have moving forward, I just want to make sure you're safe about that. And that's what I started out saying. I don't want any surprises for this administration, and I encourage you to do that. Finally, I want to talk about the committee, the closing school committee. And it's important that we have this conversation with the board members, because originally the board, when they did their resolution, was under the impression that the state had told us that we have to close two. I don't know where it came from, but all the board members felt the state had told us we had to close two schools. Subsequently, and asking for additional paperwork, found out no, the state never told us that. However, it's prudent, it makes sense to downsize or whatever because we've lost students, et cetera, et cetera. As it stands right now, the committee is struggling with whether they should close more than two buildings. Okay, now, we're being told that the resolution that the board did said two schools, and the reason that the two schools were selected is because the board thought the state told us that we had to close two schools. Okay, so that resolution was written a certain way based on information that we had at that time. If this committee recommends closing more schools or repurposing schools, not necessarily closing more schools, but maybe possibly repurposing schools, there needs to be an understanding from this committee, because there are certain board members who are not willing to make certain sacrifices without ensuring that certain things happen. And I'm one of them. Okay. And so I wanted to bring that to the board's attention, that no, there was never any paperwork from the state that said that we had to close two schools, and that the likelihood in the conversations that we're having is that we feel that there are additional buildings that need to be closed in order to right size this. And I don't know why anyone would be upset if that should happen, but I felt that I should bring it to this committee at this point, Madam Chair. So I'm through. I'm through, because all of this ties into saving the district money. Thank you. And that's my last report for the Finance and Ops Committee. Amen.
Would either superintendent or our illustrious CFO care to respond to any of the questions raised by Ms. Cotman?
Hey, and for my part, I think I answered her questions, and
All right.
Okay.
Member Woods, my additional comments, and thank you to Board Member Cotman for your feedback, and some other areas where we can find some additional savings and be able to bring more revenue. So your recommendations are well taken, and CFO and I will be working toward those goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mubin.
Does any other board member have any questions about our plan going forward? I see Terry Shooter with her hand up. You have the floor, Terry.
I just wanted to congratulate you on your final meeting. And in knowing you, you have lived and breathed the finances of the Buffalo schools. And I've learned a lot. And I've learned from our conversations. And congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor working with you guys. Let's see, I see Aaron, Larry Scott, and then Jennifer McCosey has joined us.
Thank you, Chairwoman Woods. I just want to quickly say that I was personally never under the impression that the state in any way communicated to us that we needed to close two schools. I don't have any recollection of hearing that from from a superintendent or any district staff.
Thank you, Mr. Scott, for your remarks. But several other board members actually did hear that from several sources. So it's a mixed bag. But the fact is, it's documented that that was not a state directive, but it is a financial necessity.
And I will also further clarify, I did hear that, but I just want to say I never heard it from any of our superintendents or district staff.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Board Member McCosey, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairwoman Woods. So, I just wanted to say, regardless of any, any personal, anything anybody's been through on this board, Board Member Woods, you really have led this district in the financial aspect. I, could always count on being able to understand what was happening in a much better way. You were able to interpret things for me. Agree to disagree on a lot, but I do want to give you your flowers for doing what you've been doing. I, I really applaud you for that. This is real heavy business and it's a lot of money to comprehend. You've worked with 2 different CFOs. And for what it's worth, I think you did a great job and thank you.
Well, that's very classy of you. Thank you for the compliment. I know you are also leaving, and your hard work, lobbying and being an advocate and learning to push and speaking up is what board members do. So whether we agree or disagree, the fact is we are all here elected to represent our constituents, to stand up and point out issues. And hey, we can agree to disagree, but not be disagreeable. That's the way I always saw it. So thank you for your comments. And it's going to be interesting. It's 4 new board members. Any other board members have, I don't see any other
Board
hands.
Member Woods, I have my hand up.
Oh, Madam President, you have the floor.
Ditto to what Jennifer McCousey said about you. You're going to be missed. But in regards to closing schools, I think that this is an opportunity for Buffalo to really look at, and we did, the enrollment trends, buildings being underutilized, saving money, etc. Now, this is just not happening in Buffalo. This is across the country where these hard decisions have to be made, but nobody's making them. Rochester, for example, was told, and I'm not sure by who, but if they close 11 schools, that will put them in a financial equilibrium. And so what it does for us, closing minimally 2 schools would be great. But my stance at the beginning was, why 2? Why not 3? Why not 4? To close that deficit. So we are taking a stance. I think the committee, I don't know what you're doing, but it certainly sounds like you're making noise out there because you're always in the news, the school closure committee, I'm sorry. But it has to be done. And no one's going to be happy no matter what schools are closed. No one's going to be happy about it. But I do think that all schools need to be considered across this district, not particularly on the east side, but across this district. And I'm hoping that the committee is considering that. So thank you.
Thank you for your remarks. We do have
Madam Chair, can I say, to the
Okay.
president that I assure you that we are looking at every school throughout this district. What we are being told, however, is that we are limited to only 2 schools, and that's a concern. Um, we did not make up the fact. It has been said to us repeatedly that we had to close 2 schools. I have sat on several committees because I did do the work of the board, working with the various committees, and it was expressed in those committees as well that 2 schools had to close, and at the state wanted us to close them. And so I don't know, and we can go back on some tapes or whatever, but it's irrelevant. The bottom line is at this point, we are at a situation where we need to make sure that we write some corrections and make sure that our students get what they are entitled to. And let the record reflect today that this committee started out with the understanding from the board and from staff that this was not about finances, that this was about making sure that we right size the equation for children and education. When the committee got together, they asked for financial information, but we provided, based on the counseling from the Council of Great City Schools, we provided them with paperwork that supported that you do not close schools based on finances. You close schools to improve student outcomes. And that's what we're talking about at our table. Thank you.
Okay, it seems that that is the topic that is trending in the paper. Uh, committing to the best education of our students is always our primary purpose. Academic achievement is always our primary purpose. But I do have to say, funding extra buildings and having buildings that are maybe half occupied, any good management person would take a look and say consolidation is something that would be well recommended no matter who looked at it. Rochester, we were at the Big Five. Rochester did indicate that they had closed several schools. Just looking at the facts of 4,000 fewer students necessitates that you don't need to put your money in infrastructure, gas, electric bills, falling down old buildings, if we need to invest in autistic intervention specialists, bilingual teachers. The best use of our money is for direct services for our children, not in utility bills and 22 million to invest in Buffalo's failing buildings. So I greatly applaud that we are moving in this direction and that we continue to move in this direction and put our money into direct services to our children rather than infrastructure. That's my comments on the school committee that hopefully will continue to move in that correct right sizing, restructuring, combining, and making the best use of our buildings. So is there any other persons who, board members, we're all equal here.
Yeah, I had a quick question, please.
It sounds like our board member, Adriana, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm wondering about health insurance, the 15.1 million. Is that taking into account how much more we spent than we estimated last year? Or how did we come up with this number? On the
Oh, no, that is money, that is 1 month of premium that I set aside in an account in the event of an emergency.
Okay, thank you.
That's 1 month's expense.
Oh my gosh. Okay, and we are the entire committee has put so many hours and looked at so much data, and I mean, we got 1,800 survey responses. Everybody's taking it really seriously, and we do want what's best for our students. And yes, I want to thank you for your service as well, Paulette. They're going to be big shoes to fill, and thank you so much. I'll miss everyone that's leaving.
Well, I want to thank our former president, Sharon Belton Cotman, our former finance chairperson, Sharon Belton Cotman, our most longest serving member, Sharon Belton Cotman, for her direction, her guidance, her unfailing hours to go to meetings. She was at 2 meetings this morning. I said, oh my God. Sharon, I just want to thank you for your assistance, direction, and training to us new board members when we came on and we didn't know A from B. It does take about 3 years to navigate your way around here. So thank you, because you are also leaving. And thank you, Terry. I have just been so happy to get your perspective on the schools, local schools, South Buffalo, making sure that when we make statements that we recognize all groups and that no group feels like we're picking on them. You broadened my perspective, and I thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to have the principal's point of view and expertise. So this board is losing a lot of expertise, but I know that we'll all be standing by the new board members and the current board members.
Join us December 6th, 2020.
Thank you.
Well, I'm not going to say goodbye because I know I'm going to be harassing all three of you. Thank you, Paulette and Sharon. This training has been invaluable. Just thank you for everything. I know this isn't the end. I know this is only the beginning for all three of you, actually. So just thank you for everything. And pretty big shoes to fill, but very good foundation. Thank you for the foundation.
Thank you. I'm very excited about the new board members that have come on last year, within the last as at large, and I'm also excited about the new ones that are coming. I really think that we have the ability and the capacity in each and every one of them to do some great things for this district, and it will continue. What my concern is that we have, and somewhat I've played a larger part in that, a presence on the statewide level. Anyone that's ever seen me interact with the state ed department recognizes that there is a definite respect for Buffalo as a result of it, and we want to continue that. I tried to get 2 positions again out of the Big Five to represent Buffalo. I did my best. We only were able to get 1 this year, in which at the meeting yesterday, they announced that for the New York State School Board Association, Big Five's representative for the DEI committee, that it would be Janita Everhart. And with that, I was trying, because I recognize that Adriana has a good legal brain and she can really decipher some things. So I was trying to work that piece too, but Adriana didn't work out this year for various reasons. And so I guess they didn't want Buffalo Hog and everything. So, but anyway, we had a great meeting, and we'll report. I think we should report out on that meeting at the board meeting officially, because we met with Robert Zayas, and we met with the state commissioner about the portrait of the graduate. And so one thing that did come out, and I want to share this with the board, the state ed department was clear to say that we need, our special ed department needs to reach out to them, and we need to and tell them what our needs are, so that they can sit down and help us formulate a plan. And that's what the Big Five does. Okay, Mr. Dr. Mubanga We pay them handsomely. And you saw the interaction, and you can pull the commissioner of education out of her office for a whole morning session. You got a lot of clout. So she really respects the Big Five organization and conference of Big Five, all 8 of us. But it's been exciting, and I'm looking forward to part 2 of this journey and education. I'm leaving the board, but my heart will always be with you guys. But in moving forward, there's a lot of work that still has to be done, and there are few workers, and that's in the Bible. So at the end of the day, we're going to continue to work. And Dr. Mubanga, we're not leaving you out there alone. Okay, we recognize that we've given you something to handle, and we don't want you to ever think that Paulette, Terry, myself are not available, because our perspectives are very unique. It's been a pleasure working with Terry, and I'm going to talk more about that at our final board meeting. But thank you so much, Paulette Woods, for allowing me to have the presence, and for you and I to work together. It's been a major pleasure because I did finance and ops for 3 years, and I knew what was involved in it, but no one has done it the way you done it. And Terry, it's unfortunate that you're leaving, because right about now, with what's going on, Dr. Mubanga could use a principal's perspective sitting in his ear on a regular basis. So God bless everybody. But there's a lot more work to be done. And I'm looking forward to seeing the new board members and the existing board members work together to get it done. And it will happen, hopefully, under the same leadership. Thank you. Of our president of our board. Thank you.
Well, the final words for this committee, it's we got two more minutes. So the final words go to our illustrious superintendent, who's going to be guiding the ship. Dr. Mabunga, you have it.
Honorable board member words, the final words is going to be on you, but let me just say this. Thank you to all our 9 board members here, and so grateful that you all voted for me to be here. And those of you that will be leaving, I'll miss you tremendously, and look forward to the new board coming in, and so that we can continue the work that you guys were able to bring me here. So thank you to our finance team for the work that we are doing. We all know that without finance, academics is not going to be able to move forward. So we're going to be really good stewardship of taxpayers' money, so that we can put it in the right place, so that we can move student achievement. Again, back to you, board member Woods, to close the meeting.
I'd entertain a motion to adjourn this committee. Everybody ready to go?
Yep. Good night. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Be blessed, everyone.